Welcome back to the Ripewave audio community, where we explore together all types of home audio systems from hi-fi to home theater. My name is John, and this is part 2 of our ultra-high definition 4K player shopping series. In this video, we will better understand the latest feature sets, update our wish lists, explore available options, summarize the pros and cons of each player, and select a model for purchase. In part 1, we group features into categories: price, media for video and audio and recordable formats, streaming, video, audio, and local, processing, video, audio, and surround decoding, I/O, digital analog inputs and outputs, and connectivity, LAN, Wi-Fi, USB, etc. And finally, physical and usability capabilities. Now, for each category, we need to make sure we understand the available features in today's model. Consider what might be coming or going in the future, and determine what is included at each price point. Where possible, before purchase, we want to look beyond the checkbox to understand how well a feature works and learn how models compare against its peers by reading reviews and watching YouTube videos. I am providing links to examples of those videos which helped me shop for this player. First, let's summarize the ultra-high definition 4K player wish list from part 1. Now, we had a target price between $250 and $1,000 US. For media, our must-haves are ultra-high definition 4K, Blu-ray, Blu-ray 3D, DVD, CD, and recordable media. We strongly prefer to have support for Super Audio SACD. For streaming of all forms, video, audio, or local media servers, this was not a requirement. While I will stream, I do not plan on using an ultra-high definition player as the point of connection. For processing, we're looking for HDR, scaling, sampling rate handling, and other processing capabilities that will improve the experience and be compatible with my TV and AV processor. Surround decoding. It's a nice to have. Mainly, it's there to bridge the gap until I can upgrade my AV processor. For I/O, HDMI and SPDIF interfaces are a must for my setup. Analog outputs are not critical with this digital source player, as I can convert downstream. Physical and usability, it needs to be a good match for my system. Faster load times and updated menus. We want to keep the front panel display as we have today. Finally, for overall performance, we want this to be as good as possible for the target price range. As I pointed out in part 1, you should prioritize based on your needs and preferences. So take my list only as an example. With an initial wish list in hand, we can begin our research. For this, I keep a copy of the spreadsheet started in part 1 at my side, so I can build out the comparative matrix. At this point, it is based on my current 2010 vintage Sony UBp BX57 player, which I recently learned is the Costco version of the UBp S570. We will update the matrix as we learn of new features and models. If you have not been keeping up to date with video technology, it might be hard to get started. I first explore the websites of the major brands to find out what is available and what features they are promoting. One thing you will notice is that the field has narrowed in the last few years, with Samsung being one of the latest brands to exit the Blu-ray player market in 2019. Gone also is the favorite brand of enthusiasts, OPPO, who left a year earlier in 2018. Limiting my search to 4K ultra-high definition capable players, I could only find 4 active brands in the US market: LG, Panasonic, Pioneer, and Sony. The Xbox One gaming consoles can also support this format, and with next generation models coming from Sony and Microsoft later this year, those are also likely to be viable ultra-high definition options. Looking at the field available in the US, it appears all UHD models fall within, or close enough to, my target $250 to $1,000 budget. At this time, the sub $100 models do not support ultra-high definition, and you will only find standard Blu-ray and DVD players available at that price point. There are 3 basic price points for 4K ultra-high definition. Level 1 starts at $200, Level 2 starts at $500, and Level 3 starts at $1,000. With each level, you gain a few extra features and connection options on the back. At Level 3, you will get a noticeable bump in build quality. In some cases, the same chipsets are available at multiple levels, so it is possible to buy a high-performing unit at lower costs. Just be sure you examine all the details so you are covering your must-haves. I generally start at the top and work my way down until I hit my threshold of pain, or when I am no longer excited about the player I'm potentially buying. At the $1,000 level, Level 3, there are only 2 models. Panasonic UB9000, or UB9000 for short, and the Pioneer UDP LX500, we'll refer to as LX500. And each appear to be attractive to a slightly different audience, as we will see as we go through the details. Pioneer only plays at this top tier for ultra-high definition. At Tier 2, Panasonic provides the UB820, or UB820, and Sony jumps into the mix with their UBP X1100ES, or X1100ES model. The 2 UHD models LG sells are both aimed at Level 1 pricing, the UBK90 and the UBK80. Also at the entry level is Sony's UBP X700 and Panasonic's DP UB420. To fill out the matrix, I refer to manuals and websites. This is a time-consuming process, and for some fields, it takes a lot of hunting, and it can be challenging when a manufacturer describes a feature with different labels or does not list it at all. For harder to find details, I turn to reviews from trusted content providers or use multiple sources to reduce risk of error. Of course, even manuals can be wrong. As I go along, I will encounter some features which are new to me, such as all of those HDR standards. For those, I flag for additional research. In researching a model, I may stop filling out the matrix for that model if I discover one of the must-have criteria is not satisfied. Why bother going on with all that effort if that model won't be considered? Such is the case with most of the Level 1 products. By eliminating an entry-level model from the running, my search could focus on the remaining 4 models, and as a result, I did not collect full data for any of the LG models. With the matrix complete, I began the analysis. Some trends and exceptions are easy to spot. We can see that even at the highest price points, It is not possible to find a player that supports every feature. The player that came the closest to checking all the boxes is the now discontinued OPPO UDP-205. Therefore, we need to think hard about what our must-haves are. Let's go down the list by category. For video media, all models support all formats. Easy, even the Tier 1 models. For audio media support, Panasonic only supports compact discs. If you want Super Audio CD or DVD audio support, it's only found with Sony and Pioneer. For recordable media, all players support the same formats. For streaming, Pioneer has perhaps made a smart choice by not including any support. My experience with built-in apps has been a negative one. The quality of these apps and their performance pale in comparison with those built into TVs and dedicated devices. I checked to see if player-based apps have evolved in the last few years by consulting with other YouTube channels. Their guidance is consistently aligned and confirms my feeling of not to bother. Therefore, I will not explore internet streaming further as it will not impact my selection. Some of you may utilize a form of local network streaming, such as a media server. If that is on your list, I recommend making sure the player supports the video packages and formats you are looking to use without a critical issue. Look at videos from Spare Change and TechnoDad, which cover issues players have had with some of these formats. Processing. Looking at the matrix again, we see that all players have a lot in common in the video processing category. HDR10, HDR to SDR conversion, SDR to HDR conversion, 4K upscaling, deep color 12-bit support, 24 frames per second, color mode conversions to 444 or 422. However, how each player implements, particularly with HDR, conversion and scaling, can be noticeable. So for that, I consulted videos produced by those with direct comparative experience. I found some of the best guidance came from Vincent Tao of HDTVtest, who has separate reviews of the top Panasonic, Pioneer, and Sony players, and in his summaries calls out the implementation by Panasonic as a standout, even surpassing that of the OPPO 203, which he also reviewed. He suggests that all the top models perform well, and in many cases describes some comparison as splitting hairs and that pixel peeping is required to find a winner. Panasonic does have a unique optimizer feature, which gets universal praise. The Panasonic optimizer combined with the other video processing capabilities of the UB9000 are particularly appreciated by those with projectors. High dynamic range HDR processing is a feature set I needed to research further given the number of formats. The player generally supports HDR10 and hybrid log gamma HDL, as they are open formats, albeit I was not able to confirm HDL support in the Pioneer player. HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision are license-protected formats, which enhance HDR with dynamic settings which can be used to adjust the picture scene by scene versus statically across the whole movie. Only the Panasonic player supports the Samsung-driven HDR10 format. Pioneer had announced in 2019 that an HDR10 Plus update was coming, but I cannot confirm that version was released If you know, please comment below. Dolby Vision is supported by all in Tier 2 and Tier 3. Before deciding which HDR format you want support for, first make sure what formats your TV supports. In my case, none are supported as my home theater TV was purchased in 2014. Therefore, a good HDR to SDR conversion will be required. For audio processing, all players will allow you to limit PCM sampling to align with your AV processor, downmix to stereo, and can send signals via HDMI or SPDIF as allowed by the format. Sony models can upchannel using DTS Neo 6. Both Sony and Panasonic also have an audio upscale function. Options for dynamic range compressing and downmixing surround to say 5.1 only exists with Sony and Pioneer. Surround decoding. Surround decoding support is consistent for all models with discrete channel formats including Dolby True HD and DTS HD, which are capable of being decoded by the player itself. Object-based formats, Atmos and DTS-X, are not decoded by the player, but rather pass via HDMI as a bit stream to the AV processor. Bottom line, nothing to worry about here. I/O. The area of I/O mix provides the most options. First, none of these players have digital inputs like those found in the discontinued Cambridge Audio and OPPO players. Again, I am content with leaving that task to the AV processor or an external DAC. The good news is that all have dual HDMI ports, one that is HDMI version 2.0B with HDCP 2.2 support, and another that is HDMI version 1.4 for audio-only connectivity when using an AV processor that does not support HDCP 2.2. Support for SPDIF varies. The top Panasonic, Pioneer, and Sony models support both optical and coax connections, but Panasonic drops coax in the UB820, and Sony removes optical in their level 1 players. I prefer coax over optical, so Sony's approach works better for me. Support for analog outputs is less common. You will only find 7.1 analog outputs on Panasonic models, and the UB9000 is the only unit with stereo XLR balance connections. All models compared have standard stereo outputs, albeit these are not present in level 1 models such as the Sony X800M2 and X700. Connectivity. The UB9000 and LX500 are the only players with gigabit LAN port. Wireless capabilities are basically the same with A, B, G, N supported by all Tier 2 and 3 players for 2.4 and 5 GHz frequencies, except for Pioneer, which has no support for wireless. The UB9000 is the only player with a USB 3.0 port. All other USB ports support USB 2.0. Sony is the only one to support Bluetooth, which could be a nice feature as it allows you to connect headphones for private listening. The Sony X1100ES and Pioneer LX500 are the only models with a RS-232 port for home automation. No models support trigger inputs and outputs. In general, within a brand, I/O gets dropped as you move down the line. Physical and usability. Only the Panasonic UB9000 and Pioneer LX500 are built like a tank. If blending in with a high-end home theater system is important to you, then these are the only options. Personally, I wish Pioneer would have introduced the lower keyed styling they give to the LX500 internationally to the US versus the gold lettering elite style we receive here, the white labels appear more refined to me. The Sony X1100ES and X800M2 share the same cosmetics. And while that design is not tank-like, it is still a solid design, attractive enough to blend into a decent home theater system. However, note the X800M2 model lacks the front panel display of the X1100ES as well as the other models. While built on a rigid platform, the LX500 takes vibration handling to another level, weighing in at 22.7 pounds, and the UB9000 hits the scales at 17.2 pounds. At 8.6 pounds, the X1100ES is certainly heavier than my current player. While Youthman and HDTVtest speak to the smoothness of the Pioneer disc loader, HDTVtest notes that the Sony X1100ES load time is the quickest. Load speed is important to me. As for menus, HDTVtest feels that Sony has done the best job, while that home theater dude said that the Panasonic UB9000 setup was intuitive. HDTVtest noted that the apps were not impressive on that unit. Pioneer receives low marks for its UX, looking dated and needing a refresh. While the UB9000 could be used with its 7.1 analog outputs or stereo XLR output to directly connect to active powered speakers, you must enter menus to change the volume. Not a good experience. The X1100ES gets dinged for not being able to auto-set Dolby Vision. When Dolby Vision is enabled, it gets applied to all content regardless of Dolby Vision data being encoded. Top models from each manufacturer have a removable IEC power cord, which is the preferred type. Overall performance. To assess the overall performance, I like to know which chipset each unit utilizes. While the chipset itself does not fully define the end results, it defines boundaries of what is possible. Units using the same chips will likely have similar performance and does provide an indication of the overall quality of components used in that player. For video, we find that Sony and Pioneer are based on MediaTek, which OPPO also used. Therefore, it is not surprising that the X1100ES and LX500 compared well against the OPPO reference. Panasonic uses their own HCX video processor throughout their range. This must be a great technology given that it outscored OPPO in several tests. The fact that Panasonic uses the same HCX engine in the UB820 makes that player a good budget alternative to the UB9000. It was harder to find details on the audio chipsets. Panasonic uses dual 32-bit 768 kHz AKM AK4493 chips in the UB9000, which is an upgraded version of the AK4490EQ used in the Pioneer LX500. But both should be on the same caliber. HDTVtest reports that the LX500 sounded more mellow than the UB9000 and can be enjoyed for longer periods without fatigue. For reference, the OPPO UDP203 used an AK458VN chip. The OPPO UDP205 employed dual ESS Sabre ES9038 Pro chips, which puts that product in a league of its own. With both the UB9000 and LX500 having 32-bit 768 kHz DACs, these units stand at the top of today's offerings for audio. The Sony X1100ES and Panasonic UB820 models jumped down a level with their 32-bit DACs being 192 kHz versus 168 kHz. However, this is still a respectable performance level. The Pioneer player has some quirks when playing a movie whereby you have to stop the video before hitting the home or top menu. Certifications can provide some additional assurance. The UB9000 is the only player with THX certification. Both the X1100ES and LX500 have high-res compliance for audio. And now, the bottom line and my pick. The Panasonic UB9000. This gets selected as the best for video. While the DAX and XLR outputs provide audiophile performance, make sure you don't have a need for SACD or DVD audio playback. This model is also a good choice if your TV supports HDR10+, or if you are running a projector. The Panasonic UB820 still gets a best for video rating, but is also a great budget option. For those who do not need the first-class build quality or enhanced audio options, just make sure you do not need Coax outputs, as this unit lacks those. The Pioneer UBP LX500. This gets a best for audio rating. While audio performance is similar to that of the UB9000, it is said to be more listenable, and you gain SACD and DVD audio support. As this player serves as an audio transport, supporting those features completes the story. The Sony Ubp X1100ES. Near best performance at budget. The most negative feedback is the lack of Dolby Vision auto switching. Otherwise, the video quality is close to the top. This model has some features not present in others, like Bluetooth headphone connectivity. The Sony Ubp X800M2. The best price and still very good. Has good looks, performance, and most features of the X1100ES for $250. The main differences include no IEC power cord, no high-res compliance, no optical SPDIF output, no RS-232 control, and the warranty is a standard 1-year versus 3-year warranty found in the ES models. And finally, here is my pick. The Sony Ubp X1100ES. I believe any of the models would have been a good choice, but it came down to the best choice for me. The lack of SACD support with Panasonic models eliminated Panasonic. While the Pioneer LX500 was a viable candidate and checked the right boxes, there are some concerns about its usability and the older style menus. If the LX500 was also $500, I may have given it a try. I'm willing to go to the $1,000 level, but at that level, I am looking for everything. If you could combine the best of the UB9000 with that of the LX500, it would have been a winner for me. Too bad the OPPO 205 is discontinued. Finally, with the future of 8K physical media currently unknown, I'm worried about buying into the top tier. Okay, I could have gone with Sony's X800M2 given my needs, minus the front panel display. However, it is certainly cooler to have the Sony ES logo on the front, and I can say I got the best Sony had to offer without a big investment. Perhaps I was influenced by TechnoDad when he said, don't buy a $200 player, save your money and go for the $500 player. With all this talk about price, I do recall in the 1980s when VCRs over $1,000 were commonplace. how streaming media devices for under $100 has lowered our tolerance. The Sony 1100ES has been ordered, and I should have it in a few days. Be sure to tune in for my initial impressions. So, which model will you choose? Are you waiting for future offers? Perhaps you are going with the game console. Let me know. It would be great to hear from you. Be sure to check out the other great 4K UHD player videos from the other content providers I referenced to learn more. The links are included below. Furthermore, if you enjoyed this video and are interested in enhancing your audio experience, please like and subscribe to this Ripewave audio community, and be sure to select the bell icon so you will be notified as soon as the next video is posted. Until then, keep evolving your audio experience.